There's no question she murdered her children one by one, drowning them all in the family bathtub, locking the door so the 5 children couldn't get out of the house.
What Elizabeth Fritzl revealed was that her father, Joseph, had kept her locked in a cellar for 24 years, and here she gave birth to 7 of his children, including the daughter now on life support in hospital.
She looks so different. You know, you can look at someone in their eyes and you can kind of, see a lot into them, And with her, it's just like she was dead inside. And she was kind of had like a smirky grin. That really made me mad.
These are different moments that will blow your mind, starting with horrific secret chamber where Joseph Fritzl kept his daughter.
I cannot believe it. This can't be true. This can't be true. It's a monstrous case. Because it's the own father who did this to his daughter.
On April 26, 2008, the world learned of a horror that defied belief. Joseph Fritzl, a seemingly ordinary Austrian man, had kept his daughter, Elizabeth, imprisoned in a secret cellar beneath his home in Amstetten for 24 years. She was just 18 when he locked her away, subjecting her to unimaginable suffering. Over the years, she bore him 7 children. 1 died shortly after birth. 3 were forced to live in the dungeon with her, and the others were raised upstairs by Fritzl and his wife, Rosemarie, as their own grandchildren. The horrific truth unraveled when 19-year-old Kirsten, one of the captive children, fell gravely ill. Fritzl had no choice but to seek medical help, fabricating a story that led authorities to demand Elizabeth's presence.
I'm very angry. I'm angry with it because I cannot believe that anyone can do this to a woman. And I think this says a lot about our society because no one didn't really want to go deeper and to look into the case and to ask some questions. He was very persuasive and he convinced everyone that his daughter did run away because she was very difficult, and even if she was a child, she was a difficult child.
After initial suspicion, she revealed the shocking truth. Her father had kept her locked away for more than 2 decades, repeatedly raping her and forcing her to bear his children. Investigators soon discovered the hidden prison, a cramped, dark space accessible through 8 locked doors. The conditions were nightmarish, with low ceilings and poor ventilation. Despite the horror, Elizabeth had managed to educate her children, teaching them reading, writing, and basic mathematics. For years, Fritzl maintained an elaborate deception. To outsiders, he was a respected electrical engineer. Even his wife accepted the story that Elizabeth had run away, leaving infants at their doorstep. Meanwhile, he vacationed abroad, leaving his secret family to fend for themselves. Once exposed, Fritzl showed no remorse, failing to grasp the gravity of his crimes.
I cannot believe it. This can't be true. This can't be true. It's a monstrous case because it's the own father who did this to his daughter, to his own flesh and blood.
He now faces the rest of his days behind bars. Meanwhile, Elizabeth and her children, free at last, remain under psychiatric care, slowly adjusting to a world they had been deprived of for so long. But wait for this next case, where Theresa Knorr's son recounts the horrors he faced. In August 2023, William Knorr still lived under the shadow of his mother, Theresa Knorr, a woman whose cruelty had shaped his entire existence. She had always warned him that if she ever went to jail, she would take him down with her, and he believed her. He had been trapped in her twisted world for years, forced to obey her every command, to keep her darkest secrets. But after years of silence, William finally attempted to break free. When William was arrested, he was told it was for murder. Sitting in an interrogation room, detectives showed him crime scene photos, asking where his mother was and when he had last seen her.
This is a booking photo. This is me. Nobody expects to have one of these. I'm 25 years old here. 2 detectives took me into custody, and they said I was being arrested for murder. They take me into this room, and they start showing me pictures of these places. This could have been the entry or the turnoff where Susan was, or this could have been where my mom turned off for Sheila.
He soon realized he was being charged as an accomplice. The truth had finally surfaced. His sister, Terry, had repeatedly told the police about their mother's horrific crimes, and now the law had caught up with them. Investigators eventually tracked Theresa down in Salt Lake City, where she had been working as a caretaker. She had recently borrowed thousands of dollars and was likely planning to flee, but now there was nowhere left to run. William was relieved that she was finally caught, but he knew it didn't mean he was free. In court, he came face to face with the woman who had tormented him his entire life. Seeing her again shattered him. His body trembled. He could barely breathe. To him, she was not just his mother. She was his torturer.
The police came aware of the whole story through my sister, Terry. She had gotten herself in trouble with the law several times over the years, and each time she was arrested, she would tell this story. I was glad that they found her and that she was caught, but that didn't mean I was free. I was brought into the same courtroom as she was.
He never saw her again after that day. Knowing she would spend the rest of her life behind bars was a relief. But remorse? He never saw a trace of it in her eyes. If you thought that was bad, this is because you didn't know about this case. Theresa Jimmy Francine Knorr was born in 1946, is an American woman infamous for the torture and murder of two of her daughters, Sheila and Suzanne, while coercing her other children into aiding and concealing her crimes. Knorr's troubled early life, marked by her father's illness and her mother's early death, likely contributed to her later violent tendencies. Her first marriage, at age 16, ended tragically when she shot her husband, Clifford Sanders, to death, claiming self-defense and subsequently being acquitted. Her subsequent marriages were tumultuous, characterized by accusations of infidelity and domestic violence, culminating in 4 divorces. Knorr's abuse of her children escalated after her divorces, transforming her home into a place of terror. She subjected her children to horrific physical and psychological abuse, including beatings, burns, and starvation. Her cruelty was particularly directed at Suzanne, whom she believed was a witch, and Sheila, whom she forced into prostitution. Suzanne endured 2 years of torture, including being handcuffed under the dining room table before being fatally shot by her younger sister Terry under Knorr's duress. Knorr then ordered her sons to dispose of Suzanne's body, which they burned in Squaw Valley. Sheila's fate was equally horrific. She died of dehydration and starvation after being locked in a closet by Knorr. Her body was also disposed of by Knorr's sons near Truckee Tahoe Airport. After years of abuse and the deaths of her sisters, Terry Knorr escaped and eventually reported her mother's crimes to authorities. This led to the arrests of Knorr and her sons, William and Robert Jr. Knorr was charged with 2 counts of murder and conspiracy to commit murder, among other charges. She pleaded guilty to avoid the death penalty and was sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences. Her sons received varying sentences for their involvement in the crimes. William received probation, while Robert Jr. received a reduced sentence in exchange for his testimony. Terry Knorr, who played a crucial role in exposing her mother's crimes, lived a quiet life after escaping, but died in 2011. Despite suspicions, Knorr was not implicated in the unsolved murder of her sister, Rosemary Norris. Knorr remains incarcerated at the California Institution for Women, but hold on your seats because this next case unfolds the depraved world of David and Louise Turpin. On January 14, 2019, a 17-year-old girl made a harrowing 911 call, escaping a house in Paris, California, and revealing a nightmare of abuse. She claimed she and her 12 siblings, aged 3 to 29, were held captive, tortured, and starved by their parents, David and Louise Turpin. Police found children chained to beds, emaciated, and living in squalor.
A 17-year-old girl rang 911, claiming to have escaped from this house in Paris, California.
They are abusive, and 2 of my sisters are chained up.
They began to be tied up, first with ropes, and then using chains and padlocks. The abuse and severe neglect intensified over time and intensified as they moved to California.
The Turpin children's ordeal is considered one of the worst cases of child abuse in American history. Louis Turpin's sister, Theresa Robinette, revealed a dark family secret. Louise and Theresa were sexually assaulted by their grandfather. This trauma, Robinette believes, shaped Louise's capacity for cruelty. Louise escaped her abusive home by marrying David Turpin at 16. Initially, the Turpins appeared to have a prosperous life, raising 8 children with strict discipline. They projected an image of wealth and happiness, taking family trips and presenting a facade of normalcy.
She looks so different. You can look at someone in their eyes and you can kind of, see a lot into them, And with her, it's just like she was dead inside.
As little girls, she and Theresa were repeatedly sexually assaulted by their grandfather. And worse still, their own mother condoned and encouraged it.
Louise went through the same thing we went through with my grandfather, which was probably the darkest, hardest thing for any of us girls to deal with.
Your grandfather abusing you?
Oh yeah, bad. My mom would take us to him daily.
However, their lives took a drastic turn in 1998. They became reclusive, homeschooling their children, and severing ties with their extended family. They were secretly bankrupt, and their behavior became increasingly erratic. Theresa noticed the children appeared unusually small and thin, but Louise dismissed her concerns. The homeschooling was a cover for escalating abuse. In Texas, where the Turpins lived before California, neighbors observed disturbing signs. The children were unkempt, isolated, and appeared fearful. An attempt by the eldest child to escape was thwarted when she was returned to her parents due to her malnourishment and lack of education. Neighbors admitted they suspected something was amiss but failed to intervene, a decision they now deeply regret. The Turpins' depravity intensified in California. The children were confined, chained, and starved. Louise reportedly dabbled in witchcraft, contributing to the family's isolation and bizarre behavior. The 17-year-old's escape and 911 call finally exposed their horrific reality. The children were found severely malnourished and developmentally stunted. Neighbors expressed shock and disbelief, but some admitted to witnessing troubling signs. Louise and David Turpin faced decades in prison. Their 13 children, now in state care, face a lifetime of healing from the psychological and emotional trauma inflicted by their parents. If you thought that was the worst, wait for the next one, where Diane Downs shot her 3 children. On May 19, 1983, Diane Downs claimed a bushy-haired man shot her and her 3 children on a secluded Oregon road. However, investigators concluded that Downs herself was the perpetrator, driven by her boyfriend's disdain for children. In 1989, Downs, then incarcerated, gave an interview about her crimes. Downs, who always dreamed of motherhood, saw her desire twisted into a horrific act. Her former husband expressed a desire for her execution, reflecting the profound shock and anger surrounding the case. Detective Doug Welch, an early responder, found Downs' emotional detachment disturbing. Downs claimed a man flagged her down, demanded her keys, and then shot her and her children. 7-year-old Cheryl died, 8-year-old Christy was critically wounded, and 3-year-old Danny was paralyzed. Downs herself sustained only minor injuries. The inconsistencies in her story were immediately apparent.
It was around 9:45 in the evening when Diane Downs said a man flagged down her car and demanded her keys. When she refused, he pulled out a pistol and shot her and her 3 small children.
I could smell the blood, I could smell the gunpowder, it was just a really, really horrible feeling.
During a reenactment, Downs' seemingly carefree demeanor raised further suspicion. Her background revealed a strict religious upbringing, a teenage marriage to Steve Downs, and subsequent affairs. Her marriage ended after 8 years, and she became known for her numerous extramarital relationships. Working as a letter carrier, Downs met Robert Knickerbocker, a married man. He promised to leave his wife for her, but he made it clear he didn't want children. This became Downs' motive. She moved to Oregon with her children, hoping Knickerbocker would join her, but he never did. Downs became obsessed, writing daily letters that went unanswered. Police believed she saw her children as an obstacle. A statuette found in her apartment, inscribed with her children's names, was seen as a grim memorial. The town was shocked, but evidence quickly pointed to Downs. Slugs found at the scene matched a .22 Ruger pistol she owned. Her story about the stranger unraveled during police interrogations, where she changed details, claiming the man knew her name and threatened her. The crucial testimony came from her surviving daughter, Christy, who identified her mother as the shooter. The jury found Downs guilty of murder and attempted murder. She was sentenced to life in prison. Downs briefly escaped prison, claiming she sought revenge against the bushy-haired man, but was quickly recaptured. Now in maximum security, she maintains her innocence, showing little remorse. Her actions devastated her family and the community, leaving a legacy of shattered lives. But hold on your seats, because this next case is more shocking than the others. In 2022, the case of Andrea Yates, who drowned her 5 children in a bathtub, remained a subject of intense scrutiny. Despite her clear actions, she was found not guilty by reason of insanity. The case hinges on her mental state at the time of the crime. Dr. Michael Wellner, a psychiatrist, testified that while Yates was not insane, the jury did not hear all the evidence he gathered. He interviewed 29 witnesses, but much of that information was deemed hearsay and excluded from the trial. During extensive interviews, Dr. Wellner assessed Yates's belief system. While she came to believe her actions were right, believing her children would be better off and go to heaven, her state of mind at the time of the killings differed from her later accounts.
There's no question she murdered her children one by one, drowning them all in the family bathtub, locking the door so the 5 children couldn't get out of the house, waiting until her husband left to avoid detection, fighting to hold each one of the children under the water.
If you knew you were going to kill the kids, would this have happened?
No.
Okay. Why not?
He wouldn't have left me alone with the children. I just waited till after he left and started to fill the tub.
What was going on before that?
That's all I thought about.
Was?
Drowning them.
Yates's statements about when she began contemplating the murders varied over time. Initially, she told Dr. Dietz it was a month before, then Dr. Resnick 2 months, and later Dr. Wellner a couple of days. This inconsistency suggested she was aware of the trial's implications and altered her narrative. Yates methodically carried out the killings, locking the door to prevent her children's escape and waiting for her husband to leave. The children's bodies showed signs of struggle. Dr. Wellner's testimony focused on her state of mind during the act, concluding that while she believed her actions were justified, her perception had evolved over time. Andrea Yates remains in a Texas state mental health facility. That's all for this video. Make sure to subscribe for more interesting videos like this. Thanks for watching.